we're living in the era of missing information. We're living at a time when infotainment values, and this is where the merger of media and entertainment is so important, are threatening to drown out all other values. Where our young people in high school, 80% can't find Japan on a map, according to the National Geographic. 25% can't find the United States in relationship to other countries. Hello? And this is in an age of globalization, where global news and information is actually shrinking, and financial news and information is expanding for the small minority of people who benefit by it and who follow it closely. So we have we have 5 business channels, no labor channel, no environmental channel, no real channel speaking up for women and advocating for other minorities in this country whose voices are often not heard in the media mix. The newsrooms of America are still more segregated than the U.S. military in terms of their racial mix. That's just the truth of it. Every study has confirmed this. We're seeing more, we're learning less. And this is something that's really crucial because it involves, in a sense, the future of our democracy. And it involves what media we consume. Everyone in this country believes, and if you ask anyone in this room, you will tell me, I am sure, I think for myself. Nobody tells me how to think. Every American believes that as an article of faith. And yet when Americans are polled, when we are polled on great issues, we find a tremendous amount of uniformity of thinking. That people tend to respond to the questions that are asked. And they often just don't know. There's big gaps in their knowledge. They have opinions. When you ask them, what is the basis of that opinion, they can't tell you. The facts aren't there. 2 days ago, I'm doing a film about a little story that you may remember, although it hasn't really been covered at all, which is what happened in Florida in the year 2000 in the presidential election. Remember that? I was sitting at the New York Times on the 15th floor the other day, interviewing a journalist from the New York Times, a top journalist who had organized a media recap of what happened, a review of what happened to 175,000 ballots that went missing in an election that was supposedly decided by 537 votes, ultimately decided on, as you know, by the Supreme Court of the United States. And this journalist was like one of these down the middle, I'm an objective, I'm not partisan type of person. And he was practically in tears, describing being in Florida, in 67 counties, looking at every single ballot. And you know what he said? He said, I feel like I was in Chinatown, the movie. I felt like it was fiction, because the votes of many people whose intent was clearly discernible by looking at the ballots had been thrown out. And he said to me, point blank, no ambiguity, if people's votes who intended to vote were counted, Al Gore would have won, period. Now, the whole issue has been so fogged up. Well, if you use the criteria of March 25th, instead of, all of that sort of stuff, which is so complicated and confusing, you just tune out to it. The truth of the matter is that our right to vote is at risk. Everyone's right to vote is at risk. That our democracy is being taken over, if it hasn't already, by large corporations, and most of us do little about it. So the music industry is just a piece, a small piece of the larger corporate reality. I've just finished a film which I want to tell you about, which is an effort by artists, musicians, and athletes, and some police officers, believe it or not, and emergency service workers, and others here in our city of New York, who 10 days after September 11th got together to remake the song "We Are Family," led by Nile Rodgers, music video by Spike Lee, which which VH1 refused to run, which MTV refused to air. 200 musicians, many top divas, actors, entertainers, 3 members of the Sopranos, no less, if you could believe it, just to drop a few contemporary cultural figures. And their voices, which was a call for tolerance against hate crimes in the aftermath of September 11th, reflecting a lot of the concerns here in New York City, which was an appeal, a sense of a global humanity, the way we all came together after September 11th, the way we shared, our concerns, and the way we tried to support each other, to capture that moment and that spirit. And we produced a film which was promptly rejected by PBS, the public television, okay, which also rejected an earlier film I made, which was on Sun City, the record that brought artists together against apartheid and helped actually change the world, led by Stephen Van Zandt, 54 other musicians, Peter Gabriel, and others, also had to battle to be heard despite their celebrity status because they weren't saying what the people who run networks want to hear. At any rate, we took We Are Family to the Sundance Film Festival. And to the surprise of the Sundance Film Festival, it had a rousing response. And it was written about. CNN did a long interview about it. It was about people actually feeling in touch with values that they could connect with, values of our common humanity, values of the multiracial, multicultural nature of our country, which is often lost in the imagery, on television. At any rate, the struggle to get this film out and these voices out was proven much more difficult than I thought. The project was seeded by Tommy Boy Music, Tommy Boy Records, which many of you may remember was a moving force in the old New Music seminars, which went on for 10 years. Yesterday, Tommy Boy Music closed its doors. Wow. Time Warner AOL took it over, shut it down, and fired most of the people who worked there. So our own project has been jeopardized. Now, fortunately, there are really great people in our business who really are caring people. And the folks that run the screening room down on Canal Street, the only theater open close to Ground Zero, said this film must be seen in New York, and they're showing it for a week, starting on March 8th. And we welcome you to come to it, not only to show support for the film, and to see the film where Spike Lee is and many other people who you recognize and whose music has inspired you over the years, but also to make a statement about support for artists who are willing to stand up and speak out, and not just pander, to a kind of patriotically correct view of how we should think and what we should say. And at that point, the lights went out. At any rate, I want to close on this point because really it's a point of hope. We're living at a very dark time, in an age that historians will later revisit, and we will see that what's happening to America in this period will be compared to what happened to America in the darkest days of the McCarthyite period and earlier periods in our history. We will be ashamed to learn about how many Americans have been treated who we don't even know about at this present time. But nevertheless, I think events like this reignite a spirit of caring, of community, that we need to cherish and build upon. That's why what Steve did here was so gutsy, flying in the face of everybody who told him it could never work. And look around the room, you're all here. So we need to do something about it. I'm trying to do something about it in my own field, in the media world. 2 years ago, we had the idea of creating a media channel to start watching all the other channels. And we couldn't do it on television because we could never get access, but we're doing it on the web at mediachannel.org. Now, a funny thing happened. The idea was, let's get all the people in the world who care about this issue to join together under some virtual roof to actually make their own content available to each other as a start and to the public. So we started with 20 groups. So people advised me, let's get some prominent people involved. So I went, Noam Chomsky was mentioned and other people. And I instead went to Walter Cronkite, who I had always admired, the god of all news.